Story number 1: Facility Handoff. I arrived at the decommissioned Hanford Auxiliary Monitoring Station on a Tuesday morning in late October. The site sat on a low ridge overlooking the Columbia River, surrounded by scrub grass and the remains of a perimeter fence that had begun to rust through. My assignment was straightforward: supervise the final equipment inventory and sign off on the facility's transfer to state parks jurisdiction. The work was administrative. I had done similar closures at 5 other sites in the region. The main building was a single-story concrete structure built in 1968. The interior was cold and smelled of dust and old electrical components. I unlocked the control room on my first pass and found the daily logbook on a metal desk beside a dead telephone. The book was a standard bound ledger, the kind that had been used at these facilities for decades. I opened it to the most recent entries. The handwriting was consistent and neat. The entries ran through the previous week, dated and timed, noting radiation readings from the sensor array below, routine values. Nothing that would have triggered an alert. The last entry was dated 8 days prior. I called the regional office and asked to confirm the site's personnel history. The response came back within an hour. No one had been assigned to this facility since its formal decommissioning in 2013. The last authorized entry was documented on March 14th of that year. The logbook in front of me contained entries spanning the past 10 months. I made a note of the discrepancy and proceeded with the inventory. The facility's upper level contained the administrative spaces and the control console. According to the decommissioning records I was holding, all monitoring equipment had been removed and destroyed in 2014. The disposal invoices were signed and dated. I had copies. I descended the metal stairs to the subterranean sensor array. The equipment was still there. All of it. The radiation detectors, the data processors, the environmental monitors. Everything that was supposed to have been extracted and sent to a licensed disposal facility in Oregon was mounted in the underground chamber exactly as it had been configured in the original operational manuals. The instruments were operational. I could see the indicator lights. The readout screens were displaying values. The facility had no power connection to the regional grid. I checked the generator room. The backup generators were sealed, drained, and tagged for decommissioning. They had not run in years. I stood in the underground chamber for approximately 4 minutes without moving. I was trained to recognize when a procedure had become complicated. This was complicated. I climbed back to the control room and attempted to shut down the equipment using the manual protocols. The power switches would not respond. I tried the isolation breakers. The same result. The instruments continued to display readings. I watched the numbers on the primary detector screen for 2 minutes. The values were climbing, slowly but consistently upward. The background radiation level in that region should have been between 40 and 60 millirems per year. The readings on the screen showed values that were climbing past 200 in the course of minutes. I sealed the lower level access using the manual bulkhead door and engaged the locking mechanism. I did not attempt to open it again. I completed a preliminary report noting the equipment discrepancy and the power anomaly and submitted it through the secure channel to the regional office. The response came back within 24 hours. I was instructed to remain on site and await further direction. A supervisor arrived the following morning. His name was Garrett. He was from the main Hanford facility, not from the regional office. He did not introduce himself with a title. He reviewed my report without comment. he descended to the lower level. He remained below for 37 minutes. When he returned, he told me that the site would not be transferred to state parks. The property line would be redrawn to exclude the station. The facility would be retained under federal jurisdiction and classified as a restricted infrastructure asset. My report would be filed under infrastructure assessment rather than safety incident. He told me that my next assignment was administrative review in Richland. He told me not to discuss the site with anyone outside of the office. He told me that if I had questions, I should not ask them. I was reassigned to Richland the following week. I have worked in administrative review for 6 years now. The work is quiet. I process transfer documents and decommissioning records and disposal invoices. I do not visit sites anymore. The monitoring data from the Hanford Auxiliary Station still appears in the regional system under that site designation. The readings continue to be logged. I see them in the database when I process routine reports. The values have stabilized at approximately 180 millirams per year. The logbook entries have stopped, but the instruments continue to transmit. I have not been asked to explain the discrepancy. The incident has been archived under classification level 5. My report was filed and sealed. The matter is closed. Story number 2, boundary dispute. I was assigned to verify the southwest boundary of a proposed timber sale area along Forest Service Road 42, approximately 8 miles from the nearest ranger station. The work was routine. Confirm corner monuments, flag encroachment issues, prepare the site for contractor arrival. I had completed similar assignments at least 40 times. The briefing took 15 minutes. I left the ranger station at 6:30 in the morning. The first 3 monuments matched the survey description exactly. Brass caps set in concrete, marked with the proper township and range designations, all within the tolerance specified in the 1998 survey. I photographed each one, recorded the GPS coordinates, and moved to the 4th corner position. The 4th corner marker was missing. The survey description indicated a brass cap set in concrete at the intersection of the section line and the property boundary. What I found instead was a shallow depression in the soil, roughly circular, with a diameter consistent with the concrete pad that should have been there. No sign of frost heave, no evidence of vandalism or recent disturbance. The depression was simply empty, as though the monument had never existed at all. I reported the discrepancy by radio at 8:45 in the morning. Dispatch confirmed the monument location from the 1998 survey, but instructed me to continue the boundary verification and photograph the anomaly for the district officer. I completed a standard radial search pattern around the expected location, moving outward in concentric circles at 10-meter intervals. At 16 feet upslope, I found the brass cap. It was embedded vertically in the trunk of a living ponderosa pine at chest height. The tree showed no scarring or wound tissue around the metal. The cap was not driven into the wood. It appeared to have grown into the tree, or the tree had grown around it. I photographed it from multiple angles and recorded the location. I did not remove it. At the 5th corner, I found survey flagging that was not from our office. The color was wrong, a pale green instead of the standard orange. The material was wrong, plastic instead of cloth. The flagging was attached to trees and brush using methods inconsistent with Forest Service procedure. I photographed the flags and followed the line they indicated. The unauthorized flagging led directly away from the property line into unmanaged forest where no active survey should exist. I followed the flags for approximately 200 yards. The pattern was methodical and precise, each flag positioned to maintain line of sight to the next. The forest in this direction was denser than the areas I had already surveyed. The understory was thick with young growth. The canopy was unbroken. The flagging terminated at a clearing I had not seen on any map. The clearing was roughly circular, approximately 30 feet in diameter, with no visible disturbance to the surrounding vegetation. The trees at the perimeter were not cut or burned. They simply ended as though the clearing had always existed in that precise location. 7 brass caps were arranged in a perfect circle at the center of the clearing. Each cap was identical to the monuments I had photographed earlier. Each cap was dated. The dates were 2 weeks in the future. I attempted to contact dispatch by radio. The transmission produced only static. I tried again. Static. I checked the frequency. The radio was set correctly. The repeater should have been in clear line of sight from my position. I attempted to establish a signal for approximately 3 minutes before I stopped trying. I checked my GPS unit. The device displayed coordinates that placed me 4 miles offshore in Lake Pend Oreille. The elevation reading was negative. The accuracy estimate was 0 meters. I powered the unit off and powered it back on. The coordinates did not change. I checked my compass. The needle rotated continuously without settling. I held the compass level. The needle continued to rotate. I waited for it to stabilize. It did not stabilize. I left the clearing using pace count and terrain association. I did not follow the flagging. I used the sun position and the slope aspect to navigate back to my vehicle. The route took 38 minutes. I counted my paces and estimated the distance at approximately 1,400 meters. I found my truck parked where I had left it, on Forest Service Road 40, approximately 200 meters from the 5th corner location. The vehicle was undisturbed. The doors were locked. The keys were in my pocket. I checked the odometer. The mileage had advanced 42 miles since I had parked the truck. The fuel gauge showed a corresponding consumption. The truck had not been driven. I had the only set of keys. I drove back to the ranger station. The return trip took 42 minutes. The distance was approximately 34 miles. I arrived at 11:15 in the morning. I had left the ranger station at 6:30 in the morning. 4 hours and 45 minutes had elapsed. I had been in the field for approximately 4 hours. I completed the boundary verification using the 3 confirmed monuments. I filed a report recommending the timber sale be reduced to exclude the disputed section, citing insufficient survey control and the absence of the 4th corner monument. I did not mention the brass cap embedded in the tree. I did not mention the clearing or the 7 dated caps. I did not mention the radio static or the GPS coordinates or the compass needle. The area was administratively withdrawn from the sale without explanation. No follow-up survey was scheduled. No investigation was initiated. The district officer accepted my recommendation without comment. A regional compliance officer I had never met arrived at the ranger station 3 days later. He collected my field notes, my photographs, and my GPS data. He did not ask questions. He did not provide a receipt. He left the same day. I was reassigned to office duties for the remainder of the season. I processed timber sale applications and updated survey records. I did not return to Forest Service Road 42. I was not asked to explain the reassignment. The incident was officially closed. My field notes were archived under restricted classification. I was transferred to a different district the following year. I have not worked in northern Idaho since. Story number 3, medical transport. I arrived at the regional medical examiner's office in Albuquerque at 1400 hours on a Tuesday to collect routine biological samples for transport to the State Forensics Laboratory in Santa Fe. The assignment was standard. I had made this pickup 43 times in the previous 2 years without incident. The intake coordinator, a woman named Patricia, whose name tag I had read on previous visits, directed me to Cold Storage Unit 3. She handed me the chain of custody clipboard without looking up from her desk. 6 sealed containers were waiting on a stainless steel cart, each marked with case numbers, collection dates, and the standard red biohazard labels. The documentation was in order. I signed for them at 1412 hours. The mandatory visual inspection took approximately 4 minutes. I checked each container's seal integrity, label legibility, and storage condition. 5 of the 6 containers appeared normal. Container 4 showed condensation on the interior surface of the seal, which was unusual. The storage unit maintained 4 degrees Celsius. Condensation should not have formed on the inside of a sealed container under those conditions. I noted this on the inspection form and asked Patricia about it. She checked the unit's log. The temperature had been stable. She said it sometimes happened with samples that had been in transit before arrival. I accepted this explanation and proceeded. I opened my transport cooler in the hallway outside the cold storage room. The interior temperature gauge, which I checked before every pickup, read -8 degrees Celsius. This was incorrect. The cooler had been at room temperature when I entered the building. I had not activated the cooling system. I checked the power cord. It was plugged in, but I had not switched it on. I turned it off and on again. The gauge still read -8 degrees Celsius. I returned to the cold storage room and asked Patricia if anyone had touched my cooler. She said no. I proceeded with loading the containers. When I placed container 4 into the transport cooler, condensation began forming on its exterior surface at a visible rate. Within 15 seconds, moisture was pooling on the bottom of the cooler. Within 30 seconds, the label had become illegible. The other containers remained dry. I removed container 4 and set it on the stainless steel cart. The coordinator's internal temperature probe, which she used for routine verification, showed container 4 at 37 degrees Celsius. This reading did not change for approximately 90 seconds. Then it began climbing. 38, 39. I asked her to check it again. She did. The reading continued climbing. 40 degrees. 41 degrees. I attempted to return container 4 to cold storage unit 3. The electronic lock would not disengage. Patricia tried her master override. The system did not respond. The lock remained engaged outside its programmed cycle. She called maintenance. While we waited, I took another temperature reading through the seal port on container 4. 43 degrees Celsius. The maintenance technician arrived at 1447 hours. His name was not recorded. He attempted to manually override the lock. The mechanism would not respond to any input. He said the unit's control board showed no error codes and no reason for the lock to be engaged. He recommended we wait for the unit to complete its cycle, though no cycle had been initiated. He did not know how long this would take. I asked Patricia what was in container 4. She checked the case number against the intake log. The sample was from a deceased individual brought in on the previous day. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest. The sample type was listed as tissue. No further details were provided. That was standard. I did not press for more information. The temperature inside container 4 continued to rise, 45 degrees, 46 degrees. The condensation on its exterior had stopped forming, but the moisture remained. I placed the container on a separate section of the cart, away from the other 5. The intake coordinator did not object. At 14:50, 9 hours, the electronic lock on cold storage unit 3 disengaged without warning. The maintenance technician opened the unit. The interior temperature had dropped to -12 degrees Celsius. No explanation was offered. I did not ask for one. I placed containers 1 through 3 and 5 through 6 into my transport cooler. I did not place container 4 inside. I asked Patricia if I should transport it separately. She said, I should return it to cold storage unit 3. I carried it to the unit and placed it on the shelf where it had been stored. The temperature inside the unit was now -12 degrees Celsius. Container 4's external temperature, measured immediately upon placement, was 41 degrees Celsius. I sealed the unit and left the building at 1512 hours. I did not complete the transport to Santa Fe. I drove to the field office in Albuquerque and filed a report with my supervisor. The report was received and logged. I was instructed to return the 5 containers to cold storage unit 3 the following morning and to file no further documentation regarding container 4. I complied with this instruction. The incident was classified as a storage unit malfunction and reassigned to the Facilities Management Division. No follow-up investigation was conducted. Container 4 was removed from the chain of custody log. The case file associated with it was transferred to restricted archives. I was reassigned to sample collection duties in Las Cruces, effective the following week.